to joke that I was born so poor, I had to sew the bootstraps on before I could pull myself up by them. I was born in Danville and grew up in Vermilion County. My parents got a divorce when I was 7, and my dad moved to St. Louis when I was 9. Yes, that did give me what some people might call daddy issues, but what I like to call trust, self-worth, and self-esteem issues. I was bullied in grade school and junior high like a lot of other kids. I had Coke bottle glasses. I've never been a thin girl by any means, and I had a gap so big in my front teeth you could fit a couch through it, according to my classmates. I experienced my first sexual assault when I was 14. My next when I was 16. The man that assaulted me was 33 years old. I later had to change his oil when I worked at a quick change oil place in town. The first time he came in, I hid in the pit, told my coworker, and had a panic attack about it. That second time, I may or may not have left his oil filter a little loose, but that's not the point. I was 19 when I had my first baby, and I was 20 when my sister came home from her first heroin overdose. 6 weeks later, I moved into a house with crooked floors and shag carpet, but no heroin. I worked a full-time job, a part-time job, and I sang 4 to 6 nights a week for about 3 years to make the money I needed. I was diagnosed with depression and then later bipolar disorder in my early 20s. Given some medication, told therapy's probably not what you need, and turned into a very numb robot for about 5 years of my life. By the way, everyone can benefit from therapy. That doctor gave me a Band-Aid for a gut shot. I was married and divorced before I was 31. I had met someone that checked all of the boxes that society labels strong man. And it turns out I also checked the boxes that society labels strong man. Yeah. And after years of trying to make myself fit into a box I was never made for, making myself smaller and easier to consume for the male ego, I realized I could be myself and only have half the laundry of a married woman. I say all this to try to give an idea of how most of my life has been spent jumping from traumatic event to traumatic event, and therefore how little time I ever had to really process any of that. Hell, I didn't even know what trauma was until COVID. I had always heard if things are hard, grab them bootstraps. That's all it takes. Then one summer night, while everything was shut down, someone I thought I could trust drank way too much. He started getting more and more aggressive. And I remembered a time when I was a teenage girl and a grown man who was drunk told me he was going to take my horse and tie her to his truck and drag her down the road. And I remember how after he said that, my friend's mom physically removed him from that campground. And when she did that, I was like, that's a bad bitch. But then she looked at me and she said, when they're drunk, just do what they say. It will be easier when you just do what they want. You will have a better chance of staying alive. That night, with everything shut down and everyone shut into their houses, I did everything he wanted. And I still ended up broken and bruised. I was compliant. I was smiling. And nothing went the way it was supposed to. After that night, I tried pretending everything was fine, like I had my entire life. I thought if I just push through this, I'll get over it and everything will go back to how it was. But this time was different. The Bonnie I was had gone. She was too damaged. She had been through her years of hell and retreated rightfully so. I was completely empty, a walking void. And really describing this feeling to you does not do it justice. It is overwhelming despair without the release of crying. I took my first grippy sock vacation in August of that year. I made sure my kids would be with their dad. I didn't have any gigs lined up at the guys at the shop where I worked. They would figure that out. I went into the hospital with the intention of not just getting my head above water, but gaining tools to manage my mental health better. I left with my face barely breaking the surface and a whole lot of Led Zeppelin knowledge. I read their autobiography while I was in there. Not a lot to do. That's a long way of saying I felt like I haven't been given many tools. I had been given medication and a referral to see a psychiatrist, but unfortunately, none were accepting patients at that time. Now, I've been poor my entire life. Poor white trash, as my friend's mother once called me. But you know what poor people are good at? Grabbing those bootstraps and giving them a good tug. Even if people better off than us don't think that's what we're doing. I eventually found a doctor in Champaign, which was difficult to facilitate since I worked a full-time job in Danville. But then my insurance didn't want to cover the medication I just spent 6 months trying to get. So I did the thing they say not to do. I started doing my own research. Bipolar disorder is something I will live with my entire life. I can either keep doing this exhausting and failing dance, or I can grab them bootstraps and pull myself to the next step. The thing about this mental illness is that, yes, you will cycle between moods, but they're not like regular moods. They are super extreme, all-consuming moods. And as you grow, triggers get attached to these moods. So I have this knowledge and the will to be a functioning adult, kinda. So I have to start learning my triggers and then battling my own brain response. While my brain is screaming, "Yes, burn it all down, you are beyond reproach." The first time I took on one of these triggers, I was getting ready for church. I had a terrible self-image. I really hated my body. And so every time I would get dressed to try and look nice, my brain would tell me how gross I looked. Why was I even trying? I'd never be pretty. I'm gross, poor, fat, white trash. But at that point in my life, 2.5 years ago, I was 20% body fat. Elder Bierman had recently shut down, so I had some nice clothes. I decided this would be the first trigger to tackle. So one Sunday I tell my family, stay out of my room. I go into my room, put on an outfit, exhale. It was hard not to cry, not to scream and throw my clothes, but I breathed my way through it. And I've never felt that way again getting dressed. But I also stopped caring about what looked cool, because me and Stevie Nicks think I look real cool, okay? But I had a lot of little battles like that over the course of the last 2.5 years. I still have them. They are just far fewer and more in between. But after I felt that emptiness, that nothingness, there was one thing I knew for sure. If I could help make sure that no one ever had to feel like that again, I'd do it. So I try every day to encourage women around me. Sometimes they think I'm weird. Like the girl at my office that I invited to lunch on the second day, and then she told everybody in the office I was a weirdo. Joke's on her, I am. And stuff like that made me want to stop being kind to people. It really made me want to just not deal with society at all. But I just had to learn boundaries. I had to learn to really not expect myself from other people and to just be kind with no expectation. I think a lot of people are mean because it's easier. But I'm poor. I'm not afraid of a challenge. During this time of inner work in my life, I found my circle of friends changing. I have an amazing group of friends that genuinely love and support each other. People I can lean on. People that go Pokemon Go hunting with me. Oh, the dopamine, get me a Pikachu. But eventually, I got tired of going around and farting rainbows and puking butterflies and watching other people just be mean for sport. mean for no reason or just because they're ignorant. So I stopped letting that little stuff slide. I started addressing the people using slurs in front of me. I didn't keep quiet when people were speaking out of ignorance. I started saying the quiet part out loud. I'm not mean about it, and I'll walk away rather than have a pointless debate, because I know no one listens to an emotional woman. I just say the things that, to me, a decent human being would say. I'm a singer in a cover band. We do a Casey Musgrave song I love, and the chorus goes, makes lots of noise, kiss lots of boys, or kiss lots of girls, if that's what you're into. I have a few stories about this song, but the one that sticks with me the most was in Attica, Indiana. After our set, a woman came and hugged me crying, thanking us for doing that song there and telling me about her daughter's journey. And so when the opportunity to help organize the first Pride event in Vermilion County kind of landed in my lap, I knew I wanted to do it as best I could. If I could help create a safe place for people, I wanted to be all in. Our budget was $1,000, and we had 3 weeks. Let me grab them bootstraps. The day of Pride, it rained, which meant no bubble man. It was our hottest item. One of the author's skid plates fell off her car on her drive down from Chicago. One of our 2 drag queens canceled that morning. And I, in the middle of the event, had to come back here to watch my son play bass and then drive up to Rossville. But the community was more excited that the event existed than hearing what else we had planned for them. I got to spend an amazing day with amazing people, celebrating who we are, and I'll do it again this year. Just bigger, better, and gayer.